Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful June the 20th, 2019. Grando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, it's hot down here, just like it is at the Barclays Center in New Jersey, Charlton, for the opening round of the NBA draft tonight, where a lot of young men will finally realize their dreams, their lifelong dreams that they had from their boyhood, Charlton, and now that they're becoming grown men, instant millionaires.
Instant millionaires. There's a lot of, it's like Ripley's Believe It or Not. And we know the draft is already underway, and there's just so much that young people can look forward to. And I know it's a happy time for a lot of young people. I doubt if there's any player that was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, especially for the African Americans, maybe one of them. But for most of them, they played the AAU circuit. I know Zion Williamson did the AAU circuit. There's a lot of kids that played the AAU circuit. When I was a young boy, you only had high school basketball. That was it. Now other leagues are up, and so a lot of kids are getting the chance to write out their dreams, I would say, and their parents too. Also some baseball in the news, but not as much as you'll have with the NBA draft. And it's always, NFL is always on the top of everybody's mind. But it's all about the kids that are being drafted tonight, and we look forward to having them and just being able to participate with them while their dreams come true. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more Escalades being bought with some of these new millionaires. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a lifelong aspiration, and you're going to see 30 young men that are guaranteed millionaire contracts tonight, Charlton, that's going in the first round.
Yeah.
Your second round, Charlton, it's always a crapshoot when you're looking at that. But when you look at the NBA, the composite of the league last year, 40% of the league was made up of second-round draft picks and free agents, people who were not even drafted, Charlton. They were not even highly enough thought about as far as being a franchise player.
Yeah.
Even if you look at the NBA Finals that just ended, Charlton, you think about it. The Toronto Raptors won an NBA title without having a lottery pick on their roster.
That's right.
Kawhi Leonard, who was the MVP, was the 15th overall pick in the first round when he came out of San Diego.
Yeah.
And not only that, Charlton, the Toronto Raptors had 7 international players on their roster. So if you think that by going to college in the U.S. or growing up here that you're guaranteed greatness in the NBA, you got to look around. There's competitors from all over the world.
Yeah, especially as they're looking to expand throughout the globe, and people have realized just how great this league is. NBA is fantastic. I mean, we've heard commercials about that, how NBA is fantastic, and we know that it is. And when you're a young kid, I mean, think about it, Big C. Most people who became successful at anything, you have to work really, really hard at it, but that work really didn't start until you were an adult. There are a lot of kids now being drafted, and they're not even 21 years old, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, if you look at the first round, Charlton, there's nobody in the first 4 picks that was 21 years old. Everybody was under 21 years of age, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you think about, are players ready? And everybody said, well, there's upside and they're going to develop. The thing that you have to look at is the mental process as much as anything else. You put a player in the wrong market, Charlton, they'll never get a chance to develop because that city will engulf them. I mean, Los Angeles Lakers are a perfect example. They just shipped off 3 of their former #1 draft picks, Charlton, because the city engulfed those players. They were not ready mentally to have multi-millions of dollars in their pocket and live the lavish lifestyle of Los Angeles because La La Land will take it away from you, just like New York has done to many players, Charlton. This is the thing that the NBA needs to look more seriously into. I understand you cannot stop somebody from earning a living.
Yeah.
But you can also destroy a lot of these young men. And if you go back over time and you look at all these #1 draft picks that are living in destitute now, Charlton, because the lifestyles that they led in those cities that they were not prepared for mentally or physically, Charlton,
Yes.
hurts a young man forever.
That's so true. And I know it's almost like for most people when your kids turn 16, they can take their driver's license test, but they prepared for it and they took driving lessons. They didn't just walk into the Department of Motor Vehicles and then get their license. They have to go through some testing for it. And then when you get them to the point where they can get behind the wheel of a car, that's when the worry starts. That's when you got to have more faith that they've learned everything and they're going to apply it the right way. But no one trains you how to become a millionaire. And I know there's some leagues that sit down and talk to players about what to expect. But I don't know, unless you're that yourself, how can you train someone to become a millionaire? And a lot of parents haven't been that when their kids go from, broke to stardom. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, not many kids, Charlton, regardless of the sport that you look at, and you gain instant wealth by being drafted, can be prepared for that. You can go to the seminars and the symposiums that the leagues put on saying these are the pitfalls that come with this. But you got to live 365 days, Charlton, with that burden on your back.
Yeah.
Not only that, you have family members coming out of the woodwork. Well, remember when I bought you a candy bar and you were 7 years old?
Yeah.
It'd be nice if you bought me a car now.
Right.
All types of things all types of undue pressure are put on these young kids, Charlton, when they make this instant wealth. You got business ideas brought up by your aunt, your uncle, has business ideas also. Your cousin that you hadn't seen since you were 3, all of a sudden showed up and remember when you guys played in the backyard pool together. So all of these pressures, undue pressures that are put on these athletes because they have this money. But, they have to go out and manage their lives, Charlton, as players. They got to prep for the upcoming season.
Yeah.
They need to hone all their skills on that. They need to focus on that. But they got all these outside detractors, Charlton.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a strong enough support group at home with parents to keep you on the straight and narrow, you fall by the wayside. And there's been many a number 1 draft picks that were heralded coming out of college, just like these kids tonight, Charlton. And their careers didn't last as long as a cup of coffee.
I remember talking to some older athletes that are, well into their 40s now and that made millions. I mean, $1 million was a big deal 20-something years ago. It's not a big deal now. But they were also lamenting some of those same stories, how they got better looking. Guys that are 6'8", 290 pounds became, really good looking. And now you have these movie star women that come after them, these gorgeous women that are just dolled up waiting for that guy that never had a good date in his life.
It's called the 401k plan, Dalton. These women look at athletes as their 401k.
Yep.
And as you say, they show up.
Yeah.
They're dressed for the occasion.
Yep.
They're making you every offer in life that you fantasize about.
Yeah.
Just, I will take care of you. I just need you to be my 401k.
Yeah, just sign my name on that debit card. And I think, funny thing, when I first started working in sports around professional athletes, outside of college, but I'll never forget the story because it still sticks in my mind. Most football teams have about 65, 53 people on the roster. And there's always about, say, 53 people, right? You have a coaching staff, they may have 15, 20 coaches. So that means you probably got a wife. I kid you not. I was talking to some of my friends, I think it was CBS Sports back in the day at the Coliseum in Oakland, and there was about 200 women that looked like they were just ready for some Miss America contest, standing outside the locker rooms. And you thought, as a young person, I thought, my goodness, where are all these women? Who are they here for? And they just line up. How do you tell young men to stay focused? Because everybody that comes at you really doesn't have your best interest. They're there until they exit the highway. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's very difficult to tell any man, regardless of whether he's in sports or in mainstream business world, to stay focused when these opportunities are tossed at you.
Yeah.
And they're tossed at you at no cost. You think it's no cost involved in that.
Yeah.
But this is nothing new. It's always gone on as long as sports have existed.
Yeah.
I can recall a situation coming out of a locker room after a game, and one of our top wide receivers one time, he had one of those Trans Ams that you talk about.
Yeah.
That Smokey and the Bandit had.
With the bird on it.
There was a woman on each bumper, each corner of the car.
Wow.
And we stopped. There were several of us that stopped. We wanted to see how he was going to handle this situation.
Yeah.
He walked around and talked to all 4 of them. 3 of them walked away. 1 got in.
Wow.
He had that much charisma about him, Charlton.
Our
but
foolishness.
the desperation of these women to be put in that situation where they hope like I say, to get their 401 taken care of and funded through one of these athletes, they will go to all extremes.
Well, I know all's fair in love and war. People love who they want to love, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just want people to be aware, because it happens to a lot of guys that never had a good-looking woman in their lives. They'll be on you like what they call flies on rice. Now, that's just funny, but I'm sure they have parents that can talk to them about that, too. I want to get your thoughts. I know a couple of guys were already picked, and before we get into that, I just want to run back some of the things that we talk about all the time, and I want to make sure that I get at this national hotline number. It's a hotline number for anybody going through some kind of trouble, whether it's a suicide hotline. People have issues, and sometimes they have no one to talk to. There are times when people can play games, and they can twist somebody's mind so much, they'll start believing the lie before they believe the truth. And sometimes they need help, and they don't know where to go. But you can call 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. It gets them up. There's a lot of kids out, and they just need to know there's some place you can go, Big C. I want to run down just a couple of thoughts, because everybody's looking at Zion Williamson. We know he went first to New Orleans, but I want to run back some of the past draft picks from the last several years and see where they are. Last year, 2018, there was DeAndre Ayton with the Phoenix Suns out of the University of Arizona. And last I checked, Phoenix came nowhere near to winning or even playing in an NBA playoff game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, not only that, Phoenix has the number 6 pick in tonight's draft, Charlton, at the Barclays Center.
Yeah.
But Ayton, Phoenix is picked in the top 10. They've been a lottery team, Charlton, the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And so when you think about trusting the process, as people want to say, there is never a guaranteed home run when you think about having the number 1 overall pick. You got to look at these guys and say which one has driven a team to the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So I remember Ayton, and he came out of that situation in Arizona. Ayton was kind of disappointed. He said, man, I made more money in Arizona than I made playing for Phoenix. Big C, that make any sense?
Well, a lot of these elite players, Charlton, you wonder how such programs keep getting the elite players. They're not getting them because they're going there for the academics. They say we're going there for the college experience. What kind of experience do you have when you only attend class for 6 months? So, you're going there for the financial gain that you can get, because, when you're one and done, all you need to do is be eligible for that first semester.
That first semester. So, Ayton, hopefully in the next couple of years, maybe he will lead Phoenix back to the promised land. And so you think about 2017. I remember there was Markelle Fultz. Philadelphia 76ers picked him up out of the University of Washington, and he had so many issues with his shoulder. That didn't work out too well, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this is a guy that has fallen into the abyss when you think about Markelle Fultz and even the 76ers overall. You draft 4 consecutive years, Charlton, the number 1 pick in the draft, when it led up to Fultz finally making the playoffs. But now Markelle Fultz has been put on the shelf.
Yep.
He's been shipped off to the Orlando Magic, Charlton.
Yep.
Who knows what will happen with his career?
Yeah, and that's a shame, because I really thought he was going to be one of those dynamite players, and maybe he will
Came out of the Pac-12, didn't he?
He came out of the Pac-12, yeah, Big C.
Okay, all right.
Hey, I know you Southern guys have your bias, but anyway, I think he's still going to have a good future in the NBA. Just got to stay healthy. 2016, it took Ben Simmons some time, but he shined. Philadelphia 76ers, trusting that process. Out of LSU, I think playing for the Sixers and all the people they put around him is making him successful, not just him on his own. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of depth with the 76ers, Charlton, as far as what this organization is putting together.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a solid big man in Embiid, who was the number 1 pick overall when he came out of Kansas. You added some pieces into the mix, and they're one of the young and upcoming teams in the East. And Ben Simmons, if he can ever develop a shot, it may get them into the Eastern Finals.
Yeah, I really like him as an athlete, Big C. And then I want to look at 2015, the Cat, Karl Anthony Towns, Minnesota Timberwolves, out of the University of Kentucky. And my goodness, they've had a lot of star players come out of Kentucky. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he was teamed up with another former number 1 overall pick in Minnesota, but they've had problems. Thibodeau, at head coach, they've gone through a lot of players. They had a disenchanted Jimmy Butler, who they shipped off to Philadelphia. But also, when you look at Towns, his career took a step back last year, Charlton. He didn't have the productivity that he had in past years.
Yeah, that's true. And some people say that, and I hate this thought that some big guys are lazy. I just thought they need to run more with Minnesota. That's the problem up there. 2014, another solid player, Andrew Wiggins, Cleveland Cavaliers, out of the University of Kansas. And how does Kansas send more players on to the NBA than maybe programs like UCLA that's in Westwood? Basically, your thoughts?
Another one of those Canadian kids that ended up on the prairies of the United States.
It's beautiful.
I guess he must have got lost on his GPS and ended up in Kansas.
Looking for the Wizard of Oz.
He's been tandem up with Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota via trade, Charlton. Yep. And that brought Kevin Love to the Cavaliers. And Wiggins, I mean, he's a great offensive player.
Yeah.
He just plays that James Harden form of defense, which I don't think will ever allow him to be an all-star player.
Yeah, are you saying that James Harden plays defense with his hands down, Big C? Is that what you're trying to say, your thoughts?
Well, Wiggins is always pick him up.
Yeah, I like James Harden, but he doesn't play defense. He's still one of the best players in the NBA. That brother's amazing when he shoots the ball. Look at another player, Anthony Bennett, Cleveland Cavaliers, out of UNLV. I miss the days of the late Jerry Tarkanian with the running Rebels, and they were always running. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Anthony Bennett, there's something he has in common with Zion Williams. I mean, physicality. I mean, physically, they look like the same type of player. And he's also a Canadian, Charlton. So when you think about that theme that only American kids make it to the NBA, look at what Canada has done to the NBA, Charlton.
Yeah.
It has an influx of players and there's going to be a few drafted tonight out of Canada. But here's a player, Charlton, who flamed out real quick. Anthony Bennett, I mean, he was with his inaugural team for 1 year. He was gone after that. And now who knows where he's at in the NBA.
Yeah, and I know, as we talk about it all the time, it's a shame what's happened to Kevin Durant. I know he'll get back to where he can play again, but will he ever be the same? Even Boogie Cousins. Klay Thompson most likely would be himself again because the ACL is not as bad as an Achilles tendon. But these players, again, when you talk about the kind of money that guys that are injured now in a Durant or in a DeMarcus Cousins, these new players may never get those kind of contracts, even though everyone thinks that kind of money's there. I want to go back to 2012. Remember Anthony Davis, New Orleans, and then also the University of Kentucky, another Wildcat. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, we see what just happened with Anthony Davis. He was booted out of New Orleans via trade, going to the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's ever lived up to his expectations in New Orleans. I mean, there's always been a lot of hype that he's one of the top 5 players in the NBA, Charlton.
Yep.
But a top 5 player in the NBA will get you to a championship round, Charlton. He's never gone that way in New Orleans.
Never gone that way. And would you believe one of the greatest players, at least one of I would call him the Curly Neal Award from the Harlem Globetrotters, because his ball handling skills are impeccable. 2011, the great Kyrie Irving, you know who he is, played for the Cavaliers, helped LeBron James win a championship, Big C, came out of Duke. But no one likes Kyrie because Kyrie has too much moxie in his blood, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, while he was with the Cavaliers, Charlton, he never had a winning season prior to LeBron returning back.
Yeah.
But this was a guy who had a short resume coming out of Duke. He only played 11 games while he was at Duke, Charlton, prior to being drafted by the Cavaliers. LeBron James helped propel him to a championship. He ended up wanting to have his own team going off to Boston.
Yep.
He found out it wasn't easy, Charlton. He should have known just being in Cleveland without LeBron, he couldn't win, and I don't know why he thought going to another team, and he's about to leave Boston now and head to his third team.
Is he leaving Boston or is he being uninvited? You know how when guests stay too long, sometimes you say, hey, well, we're going on vacation, so that gives them a hint. Big C, is he leaving or being uninvited? That makes any sense.
Well, when you look at what Kyrie did, I mean, he led Boston in steals, in assists and points last year, Charlton.
Sure did.
They say the chemistry between he and the rest of the team was bad. No one's blaming the coach Bradley Stevens for the inability to coach. So it's easy to throw hot water on the player and scald him and let the coach scathe free.
And you get rid of the guy that led the team. I thought that's funny. I mean, it's all fair love and war, but Kyrie will probably land on his feet someplace. And who gets along? I just want to get your thoughts on something. Everybody wants an athlete that has attitude. They all talk about the Allen Iverson because he can bring it. And he was a smaller guy for NBA standards, but he had the heart of a lion. But now when they find guys like that, they say, well, we don't really like that guy on our team. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the thing is that you want a media-friendly player. And so many say, we want you to be able to go out and do pleasantry interviews. We don't want you to be up on the podium with an attitude.
Yeah.
You should be happy that you're making this money.
Yeah.
It's not like that. The players run the league in the NBA. They are grown men, and they have the ability to do and speak as they want. If the league wants to fine them for being themselves, the players will accept that, Charlton.
Yeah.
But the media puts too much emphasis on how they want players to behave. No one is telling the media how to behave as a grown man. Why should a professional athlete have to do that?
That is so funny. No one tells the media how to behave. Go back to 2010, John Wall, Washington Wizards. He's also, what is it about the SEC? Do they have all the coaches that they only scout the SEC nowadays? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, for some reason, you got all these tremendous athletes in the southeastern part of the United States. I mean, and when you talk about Kentucky, it's always been a hotbed for basketball. You can go back to the 60s with Adolph Ruff.
Yep.
And the coaches that have been there since him, they've had championship pedigree, Charlton, and they bring in the elitist athletes, and that program is always in the top 10 in the country.
Always in the top 10. Another player that I never really felt got the fair shakedown in Los Angeles, Blake Griffin in 2009, going to the Clippers from the University of Oklahoma. I've always seen him as just a dominant athlete that maybe didn't get the fair chance to help the Clippers. I know it's always about money. Personality, good. He's always a little banged up, but he's such a dominant player. To think he's been in the league 10 years, Big C, your thoughts on him?
The wow factor. Charlton, how do people forget? If you go back 10 years, didn't Blake Griffin get the same thoughts from the media that Zion Williams is getting? How explosive he was, how great a leaper he was, how he's going to change the face of the NBA. Blake Griffin won dunk contest jumping over cars.
He
was a skywalker. And so as people say that they've never seen anything like Zion Williams before, think back 10 years ago when Blake Griffin came out of the University of Oklahoma. He was doing all the things that Zion Williams is doing now. But has he been able to translate that into a championship? No, Charlton. And I know you stopped there, but the last player, Charlton, to win an MVP drafted number 1 overall in the NBA was Derrick Rose. And I believe he was drafted in 2010 out of the University of Memphis. But look at where his career is going. I mean, he played the same type of game that Zion Williams plays, also just on a smaller scale. But injuries throttled his career, Charlton, and slowed him down after his MVP season. So as you look overall at those 10 number 1 draft picks that you've talked about and how their careers have taken different paths, Charlton, the one constant with all of those players, Charlton, other than Kyrie Irving, is that they have not hoisted a championship trophy. And Kyrie took LeBron James to be able to do that. So as we sit here year after year thinking about the next player who's going to change the face of the NBA, the NBA doesn't wear makeup, Charlton. It's all real.
Well, the people on TV wear a lot of makeup, and I know it's just a matter of having that opportunity, and looking at young people, especially. I mean, I just have an affinity for African Americans because I am one, and I know that oftentimes how people admire athletes, but there are a lot of times when you can go into Silicon Valley and get a job that pays about $150,000, $200,000 a year. Nobody puts you on TV and kisses your backside and tells you they've always loved you and they knew you'd make it. But that, and I know this is probably a stupid thing to say because I don't want to spoil the party for people, but for people of color, there's millions of black kids that will never be on that podium being announced as an NBA draftee in the NBA. But I know that everybody has a dream to be there. What advice do you give to the million guys that are also out there trying, Big C? And it's just not going to happen. There's not enough teams for a million guys to make the team. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, there's not enough teams for 68 guys to make it. That was the number of underclassmen that were declared and left their names in the hat for the NBA draft. So I look at these guys, Charlton, and I'll always say it, and I continue to say it, lack of education. lack of guidance from their parents,
Yep.
lack of understanding what may not happen in life, and don't always try to take the short road.
Yeah.
Work on that education, work on that lifelong skill. Because when the number got to 60, as far as underclassmen declared for the draft,
Yep.
that ate up the entire draft, Charlton. That's not counting the seniors who no longer have eligibility. It's not counting the European players, Charlton, that are going to be drafted from around the world, the international players.
Yeah.
And so when we look at these players in NBA, potential newcomers into the NBA, only 30 of them are guaranteed a position on a team, Charlton.
Wow.
But of those 30, somebody else have to become unemployed. So that means that there's 30 jobs that are going to be lost for those 30 that are gained. Yes, there's going to be 15 to 20 second-round picks and free agents that makes rosters also, because it's about salary cap,
Yeah.
about fitting in financially. It's not about that you're good enough to play. It's what will you take financially as a minimum to be on the roster. Nobody's going to turn that down because you're always looking for a chance.
Yeah.
Look at Jeremy Lin several years ago. He was California State Player of the Year.
Yeah.
He's the only California State Player of the Year who did not get a major scholarship
Yeah.
offer from a major university, a Power 5 conference. He ended up in the Ivy League.
Yes.
But he paid his dues, Charlton, sitting on the bench with the New York Knicks. When an opportunity came about, he exploded on the scene. He became a mainstay household name in New York.
Yeah.
Just because he was there for opportunity. But the opportunity that all of these young men need to look at that are in college. Don't forget about your dreams,
Yeah.
but don't forget about your education first and foremost.
You know, there's a player by the name of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, played college at Lou Alcindor. Kareem went on to UCLA. I think he played at Power High School out of New York. And just someone who, it's amazing, a tall, lanky kid that developed a sky hook that no one could stop from UCLA all the way to the pros. And he still, I think they're missing the mark. He should be an ambassador for the league. We have these living legends. We talk about Russell, how whenever you win a championship, there's Russell there on the podium to shake the hand of the MVP. Now, all of these players, it would be wonderful to hear their thoughts on what it was like when they were where, say, Zion Williamson is or Barrett is today. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the thing about those players, Charlton, is that they were actually student athletes.
Yeah.
They went to college to get an education because it was not a one-and-done rule when they went to college. You had to spend your time in college, your 4 years. Spencer Hayward changed that. And all the young players that are being drafted tonight, Charlton, don't even know who Spencer Hayward is.
Yeah.
Spencer Hayward challenged the NBA on the early entry rule. He was out of the University of Detroit. And he spent a year in the ABA before he could get into the NBA.
Yeah.
But these young players now, and they're going to abolish the one-and-done rule. I'm curious at how this is going to affect so many young players.
Yep.
We have had success of some players coming right from high school and going into the NBA. LeBron James, most notable. Kevin Durant, Charlton. Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
But they're so few and far in between. I mean, you can go back to Daryl Dawkins, Moses Malone, players who always did not get it right. They won championships, but
Yep.
they didn't always get it right.
Yep.
And so what I wonder now, Charlton, with these young players not going to have to go to college, not even for 1 year, and they come into the NBA.
Yeah.
Physically and mentally, how will they be chewed up by these grown men, Charlton? That's going to be the biggest challenge for them. How will they be chewed up by these grown men? And I think that if the NBA and what they should do, even with the players being drafted tonight, if you're under 21 years of age, Charlton, until you're 21, in your contract, there should be a team-dedicated chaperone to you, that the team is paying and you're paying, you're splitting the cost, that this guy is with you 24 hours a day, Charlton, for supervision.
Yeah, that would be very salient. And I mean, you know, Big C, when young people, maybe I'm a little bit too old to understand how a lot of them think now, but I just see how you can't tell people what to do anymore, especially when they get a certain age, and now you put $1 million in their pocket. They're like, well, why would I listen to you? But I do think they need some type of guidance. What we're going to do is come up on what we call the Big C pause, and then we're going to come back. I'm going to ask Big C about a couple of guys that were drafted, and then maybe just some thoughts about what you would say to them, because you have a lot of wisdom. You've been around broadcast. You've been, as an athlete, been around other athletes for many, many moons, and want to get your thoughts on what you would say to some of these players, because sometimes we assume that because they come into this money that their lives are going to be okay, but some of them don't have anyone to go to. We'll take a pause and come right back in just a moment. All right, we are right back after the Big C pause on Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can find Big C Sports on Google Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcast. You can find us on Spreaker. You can find Big C Sports on Spotify. You can find us on YouTube. You can find Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast for television. And you can find us if you have that app in your home called Alexa. You say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You hear our sponsors come up, and then you hear welcome to the show. And I thank our sponsors for their support as we keep growing Big C Sports. I want to just get this thought out there, Big C, because I know everybody had some projections. Of course, everyone talked about Zion Williamson, going number one. And then there was talk about Ja Morant. There was R.J. Barrett, Jarrett Culver, DeAndre Hunter. Just so many players. Darius Garland. There's a lot. Kobe White. And we've covered some of them, over the past couple of days. But I want to get your feeling. We know Zion went first, and he's the number one pick to New Orleans. And even when you talk about how he got there, what's it going to take for him to build New Orleans into a championship team? And they've never been one, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if you can put that much emphasis on Zion to build New Orleans. I think he has to work cohesively with the pieces that they have.
Yeah.
New Orleans has brought in a lot of assets. Like I said, they're the Lakers now of the South.
Yeah.
When you think about it, they already had Julius Randle from the Lakers the previous year on the roster. They make the trade and get 3 more players. What they're doing is building a young nucleus. They need to have a couple veterans on this roster to direct this team. I don't think that Zion will be counted on as a leader. He's going to have some bumps in the road coming into the NBA. But when you look at what New Orleans is going to have, they got Zion number 1 overall tonight, Charles.
Yeah.
They're also going to have the 10th and the 17th pick in the first round. So they have an opportunity to bring in a very young nucleus of players. We're talking about that the New Orleans Pelicans, Charlton, can have 4 starters next year that have less than 3 years experience in the NBA. Zion's going to start, but, you're looking at the point guard. Ball will split time with a veteran. But you look at Ingram, who they're looking at as a shooting guard.
Yeah.
So this is the team, Charlton, that's going to have a lot of hiccups. But this is the team that's not going to be good for another 2 to 3 years. So this is the developmental team that you're looking at in New Orleans.
Let me get your feelings again, because Zion, they have him as out of Duke, freshman at Duke, of 6'7" forward, 285 pounds. We just saw what happened with athletes like DeMarcus Cousins, way about the same. DeMarcus Cousins, a little bit taller. He played relatively healthy. Didn't have a lot of issues over the years until he went down to New Orleans. And I'm not being silly, but maybe change some of his diet, because a lot of that food is not the best. I'm not knocking anybody in their diet, but do you think because there's so much in the culture in New Orleans that sometimes players go there and they don't flourish? Is that a silly thing, or does that make any sense? Your thoughts?
Well, you got to look at that from 2 different spectrums, Charlton. The New Orleans Saints have flourished down there in the last decade.
Yeah.
And so they're eating the same type of food that the basketball players. When you look across the spectrum of the NBA, how many teams are great in the NBA? It was just 2 seasons ago that the New Orleans Pelicans, I believe, was the 5th seed in the playoffs in the West.
Yeah.
But it's how fortunes change because of injuries. They lost Boogie Cousins, Charlton. All of a sudden, they didn't have the same dynamic. They lost the guard that they had, Peyton.
Yeah, Peyton.
Peyton got injured.
Yeah.
So when you look at some key elements of their offense, they were missing. Davis missed a lot of games. He's never played a complete season.
Right.
The NBA is about being healthy. That's what the NBA is all about. It's not about the city that you live in, because there's some cities, San Antonio has some marvelous food down on the Riverwalk.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say their food is just as good as what New Orleans is when you're looking at Tex-Mex. Down in Dallas, all the barbecue is down there. Memphis, same way. So it's not about what a player has in his diet. You talk about injuries in a player. They can happen to anybody. Kevin Durant, you're looking at Boogie Cousins.
Yeah.
Those are on separate teams. But players have torn their Achilles before. Dominique Wilkins has done it. Kobe Bryant has done it, Charlton.
Yeah.
Star players have returned from type of injuries. But you look at medical science now. medical science is so advanced that when a player has a catastrophic injury that was catastrophic 30, 40 years ago, they almost laugh at it now because that timetable for return is much quicker. Boogie Cousins was not out an entire year once he tore his Achilles.
That is so true. And with medicine now, it comes back. So I want to get your thoughts. I think Zion's going to do fine. There is a lot of pressure on him, but they did not win a championship at Duke because it's not just one person. When you look at Ja Morant, the number 2 pick, Memphis, I think Memphis has the ugliest floor in the NBA. You would think they could find someone who could design a better floor than what they have down there. That's just an opinion from a lot of AAU guys. But Ja Morant, Murray State, sophomore, a guard, and he's 6'3", 175. Now, I heard a story that he wasn't really highly recruited. There were some coaches that saw him playing in like a pickup basketball game and saw that he could really play. And that's what opened doors for him. I think this kid reminds me so much of a De'Aaron Fox for the Sacramento Kings in their size, in the way they can dribble the ball, cross it over. But does he need to put some more meat on his bones for the NBA, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, there's all type of lengthy players, Charlton, in the NBA. The NBA is not a physical game like it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
This is about offensive explosion. I mean, he's bigger than Steph Curry.
Yeah.
When you look at it. So players now, Charlton, it's about agility and getting to the basket. When you look at Jay Morant coming out of Murray State, he's the most complete guard in the draft. He's ambidextrous as far as passing.
Yeah.
He was double digits scoring and rebounding, assists in college. So he's going to be an asset. They got rid of a veteran guard in Mike Conley.
Yep.
So he's immediately going to have to take the floor in a leadership role with the Grizzlies.
Yeah, and I hope that he can. And I know that Curry's a lot more bulked up now than he was when he came out of Davidson. Looks like a different person. He's still slight, but he's more developed. Guy, I mean, even looking at how Shaq put on muscle when he came out of LSU. So everybody knows you're going to hit a growth spurt. And in the NBA, when you're playing against grown men, you got to put some meat on your bones. So I hope that his size, even Michael Jordan was thin when he came out of North Carolina, so he'll put some meat on his bones. I want to get your thoughts on R.J. Barrett out of Duke, a freshman forward, 6'7", 202. He reminds me of a frame like a Scottie Pippen, maybe as dominant as Scottie Pippen also. Maybe that's what we'll see in his future. Give me your thoughts on him, because he was part of that 3. We talked about the 5 all-star players at Michigan back in the day, the Fabulous 5. They had the Fabulous 3 down at Duke. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when I look at R.J. Barrett, another Canadian kid, Charlton, I liken his game a lot to a Jalen Rose, who was a member of the Fab 5 at Michigan. He's a left-handed shooting guard, Charlton, who has all the dynamics that you look for in an NBA player.
Yeah.
He was the number 1 recruit in the country last year coming out of Canada, Mississauga, Ontario. And how his game translates, Charlton, in going to the New York Knicks. He has a strong base for a support group with his dad, Charlton, his godfather, and Steve Nash. I don't think that he'll be blown away by the city of New York coming from Toronto on what they just experienced up there with an NBA title.
I hope so, because I want to see these young guys make it. But I want to get your thoughts, too. I haven't seen too much of the draft, but I know the top 3, and we're not trying to give away everybody that went on. But is there anything that you saw that maybe a guy that went under the radar? We talked about many players, whether it was DeAndre Hunter out of Virginia. We talked about Darius Garland out of Vanderbilt, and talk about a program that's starting to put some good athletes together. There's Kobe White out of North Carolina. Anyone that makes you say, you know what, I really like this kid, even though he maybe wasn't on TV every weekend? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's a kid that I've always liked, and that's Rudy Hachimura out of Gonzaga. He went number 9 overall to the Wizards. I think that all the draft experts were overlooking him, Charlton. But, he's been a consistent player out there for Mark Few. He's had a lot of tournament experience in the NCAA.
Yeah.
He hasn't backed down from anybody. He has that big, solid body. And he's another one of those foreign basketball players, Charlton. He's actually a Japanese player that played in America, Charlton. And he's going to be impactful with the Wizards. We know they need some front court leadership.
Yeah.
With John Wall may not be back to himself. Bradley Beal is going to stay with the team. But they needed a front court scorer, and I think they'll get that Hachimura, who has that big NBA body already.
With also, and again, the young players we talked about, we went back from Ayton last year's number 1 pick, and you went all the way back to Rose that came out of Memphis as well, and how their success has really, it's almost like it's over now. I mean, Rose is going to be, he's still a solid player. I think he went for 50 in 1 game this year, but when you have so many injuries, it's hard to get back to that level of success. I want to get your feelings on this thinking, and we don't really know until it comes out. But if Golden State decides to sign Durant to one more year and he has an option where they could trade him out, I think for sure they're going to get Thompson back. Durant, who knows? But there's still talk that they're going to sign both of those guys with a 1 year at least, with a chance to go elsewhere. Give me your feeling on what you see happening with those organizations. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, I think it would be a very smart move for Golden State to go ahead on and re-sign both of those players. They're both, in that option free agent year, Charlton. And I think it would be wise for both of those players to stay with Golden State because they can sit there and say, okay, we have unfinished business.
Yeah.
That's what we have. We were betrayed by the injury bug, and we had a championship opportunity to go out and get that third championship, Charlton. They wanted to have that three-peat.
Yep.
They didn't get it done. But I see them all coming back with more hunger and signing with that organization. The media tried to tear down the Golden State Warriors, saying that they all hated and despised each other, that they did not want to be around each other.
Right.
I never saw that. And I've had teammates, Charlton, that I've played with that I've despised while we were teammates.
Yeah.
But when we were working, we were family.
Yeah.
We went to battle for each other. You're not asked to be kissing each other in practice every day.
Hopefully not.
You're not asked to be kissing each other in the game every day.
Yeah.
But when you walk out on the court or on the field, you have a common goal as a team.
Yeah.
The media is always trying to be the detractor.
Yeah.
Until I see or hear an athlete sitting up on the mic, just like we heard all the talk out of Houston.
Yeah.
That Harden and Paul.
Yeah.
They don't want to be together. We never heard any of those guys hold a press conference.
Right.
When Protas has something to say, he stops in front of the mic.
Yeah.
Even though he's lying, he still stops in front of the mic.
Yeah.
We haven't seen these athletes stop in front of a mic to say, I have to say something.
Right.
And so they have the ability, if they tell the press they want to talk, everybody's in town is going to drop what they're doing and show up, Charlton.
Yeah.
So until I hear professional athletes say, I no longer want to be here, and he announces that in the media, I'm demanding a trade, a la Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
He's the only one to say that I don't want to be here, I'm not signing here. Nobody else has made that statement, Charlton.
Let me get your feeling on something. When you think of Barrett going to the Knicks, do you feel for him, an organization that's going to play with an owner and Dolan that really doesn't like a lot of the players? I still remember they threw out Charles Oakley. But now he's going to go there, and they wanted to get Durant to come there. That's probably not going to happen. Do you feel for him that he's going to go into such chaos in New York City with the great expectations? Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, I think that the young players in the draft, Charlton, they all go in with their eyes wide open. They're excited about the opportunity that they're receiving being a high-round draft pick in the NBA. And I look at that with Barrett. Barrett's been prepared for this. He's not a naive player.
Right.
His godfather, Steve Nash, back-to-back NBA MVPs when he was a guard in Phoenix.
Yes.
His dad played on the Canadian national team, qualified for the Olympics. So he has a great lineage behind him, Charlton, and understanding what the NBA game offers. So he's been prepped by Steve Nash what to expect in New York, Charlton. So I don't think that he'll be dumbfounded going there. I think he will rise to great expectations in that city.
Well, I would surely hope so. I know they call it the Mecca, but it's not because they're winning. It's just because New York City is the number one media place in the United States of America. So everything they do it gets more attention than it really should. But I just want to say, as we look at players that are getting the chance tonight to have their dreams come true, I see how hard a lot of players work. The 73rd NBA draft, underway at the Barclays Center. And isn't it amazing? Let me just get your feelings on why do they hold it at the Barclays as opposed to Madison Square Garden, since that seems to be the city and the team that everybody wants the best players in the world to go to. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at the NBA draft, just like the NFL draft, Charlton, it moves around to cities that bid on them.
Yeah.
When you build new arenas, you get an opportunity to host an event, regardless of the professional sport. And the Barclays Center is the newest venue in New York. And that was part of the deal when you build these new venues, is that you get an opportunity to host the draft. Just like the Oakland Raiders, Los Angeles Raiders are going to host the NFL draft next year in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that's interesting how it's just amazing how the sports world can change on a night like this where a lot of people, their dreams are coming true. I'm really happy for them, especially for a lot of the mothers that have put up with so much just trying to make sure they get their kids to get the grades. make sure they got to all the basketball games and tournaments and practice. And I know running around with AAU here in Northern California, there are a lot of times parents don't show up. I mean, there's some parents that just don't show up at their kids' events, and that's in school or even extracurricular activities. So for the parents that do, and for different reasons, sometimes people are working 2 or 3 jobs, so they can't always show up. They got to put food in the belly. So I understand that too. But in closing, and I love the way you said that these nouveau riche millionaires need to get some good counseling around them. But at the same time, there are a lot of sports agents. You talked about, I think there was a program called 30 for 30. And they had predominantly African-American athletes that have gone through $100 million, $50 million, $75 million, and it's gone. And it wasn't their family members that took the money. It was these agents and these business owners that had these great schemes or scams or Ponzi schemes or whatever it is. Oftentimes, the people that hurt you are the ones close to you. They're the ones who accuse you of doing things you did not do, are the ones who maybe take advantage of a situation for a young mind. And I'm just being honest. For the most part, these young black athletes, they're going to have a sports agent that doesn't look like anyone in their family. And for some reason, most of those guys who ended up broke, same situation. What advice do you give them? Your thoughts?
What was the common denominator in all of those guys, Charlton? They didn't have a college degree.
Yeah.
One of the things I've always preached, you got to get an education. If somebody takes advantage of you because you're ignorant, period, and I'll use that terminology, because you have not chose to surround yourself with the right people because of lack of education and knowledge.
Yeah.
And everybody said, well, this is their first time becoming a millionaire. Generally, it is somebody's first time becoming a millionaire when they become one.
Yeah.
But if all you think about is the money that you can see right in front of you, and you don't pay yourself forward, Charlton, then you're the fool in this situation. And we've seen this with all these athletes, and I spoke about it early.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you got an aunt that, bought you an ice cream when you were 7 years old. You got a cousin you swam with in the backyard when you were 3. You got an uncle that, bought you a hamburger when McDonald's first came out. All of these things, Charlton, you got all of these people that you owe, that you feel, they're not going to be able to pay their car payments. They're not going to be able to pay their light bill. They're not going to be able to pay their rent. All of a sudden, you got an open checkbook. That's because you're unintelligent. What did they do all of that time while you were in college, laboring, eating top ramen or whatever, Charlton?
Yeah.
Were they sending you care packages? No. They were sitting there waiting on that meal ticket, as I say, that 401 plan. That's what they wanted. You are their 401k. And so when that uncle tells you, hey, I got a great restaurant idea, I got a great car wash idea, I got a great liquor store idea, say, okay, send it to my accountant. That's what you do. Send it to my lawyer. Let them go over the financials. You just can't say throw this money into it, we'll make it work without having a business plan. But if you have an education, Charlton, and I know you say minority athletes, African-American athletes that have been taken advantage of.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of white athletes take early entry into the draft, Charlton. We don't see that. We see them finishing out their tenure in school, Charlton, getting that education, having a foundation. I understand that people want to get instant wealth. That's hitting the lottery. That's what being drafted in the first round is. You're hitting the lottery. That's why they call them lottery picks.
Yeah.
But you also have to understand how to manage your money. Simple as that, Charlton. When you were given $1 as a kid, a little kid, you can spend it all right now, your parents will tell you, or you can spend a little bit of it at a time, and it'll make it through the week. I used to get that when I was a kid. If I spent a little bit every day, that would make it through the week. Because penny candy, you got 2 for a penny.
Right.
You got a candy bar for a nickel.
You're going way back in the day.
Way back in the day. So if you went in and bought 20 cents worth of penny candy, Charlton, you had 40 pieces of candy. That would basically get you through the week if you ration it out. You can still buy a soda and a candy bar to go along with it, and a bag of chips, and make it through the week.
Yep.
You didn't want to walk in and spend it all in one day and then all of a sudden looking sad because you gave money to everybody.
Right.
That candy was for you. You didn't share it with everybody.
Yeah, that's part of it too. And then we know everybody has whatever stories. There are a lot of families that do help their kids and their siblings get along and taking care of kids and grandkids, and there's a lot that happens in the. I think they call it takes a village to raise a child, and a lot of kids come from that community, and there's a lot of love that's given to make sure they're even alive, let alone get drafted. So I just want to say it comes in all gifts and sizes. I just want to say congratulations to everybody who has your dreams coming true, and we wish you nothing but the best. Hope you're healthy, wealthy, and wise. I want to just finish up on a few more sports. I know we still have Major League Baseball, and it may not be that exciting because baseball obviously will get better after the All-Star break, but there are still a lot of games that are being played around the country. And just going down some of the schedule, I really appreciate what I saw in Scherzer, who broke his nose, and he was at batting practice, I guess just kind of messing around, and the ball came off of the bat and hit him right on the eye socket or nose, and it broke his nose. And when he gave his interview, he has one eye that's blue and one that's brown, and that was before he was hit by the ball. But did you see how he went? I think he was so dominant last night, no one could get a hit or score on him. Mixie, your thoughts?
Well, as a pitcher, it's about being focused. You know where the mound is. You see the signals. You're throwing the ball. The nose is not really going to affect your pitching motion, Charlton. That's all in that arm and that leg drive.
Yeah.
And so as a pitcher, you're extra focused if you got a broken nose because you're going to have a swollen eye.
Yeah.
So you're putting more emphasis on getting the ball over the plate. But that's what being competitive about. Athletes flirt all the time.
Yeah.
Injured is a different story. Hurt, you can play.
Yeah.
Injured, you can't.
Yeah, that's a big story there. So I really appreciate the way he came on and played. Tonight's schedule in Major League Baseball, you have Colorado is at Arizona, and you have Philadelphia at Washington. And just, again, a great performance by Scherzer. Really appreciate seeing how well he played. You have Miami at St. Louis. You have the New York Mets at the Chicago Cubs. Cincinnati's playing at Milwaukee. San Francisco's playing at the LA Dodgers. And what a series. When you look at Giants-Dodgers, doesn't really matter, who's at the top of the heap. In that conference in the NL West, they still play like they're playing for a playoff game, it seems, every series. And we go across to the American League. Cleveland is at Texas. You have Houston playing at the Yankees. Altuve played, coming back from some injury, didn't get a hit. Hopefully he'll be playing better. You have the Angels at Toronto. Minnesota's at Kansas City. Tampa Bay is at Oakland. And then Baltimore's at Seattle. Now, I hear there's some news that the Tampa Bay Rays, they've getting permission from Major League Baseball to explore playing half of their home games in the city of Montreal. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think that would be a great move for Major League Baseball. When you think about the population in Tampa, you got half the people from Canada living down there anyway, retiring.
Yeah.
But ever since the Expos left Montreal and left that void and going back to Washington, Charlton, you have that huge Cavernous Stadium, the Olympic Stadium there in Montreal. And you think about, Montreal, they used to play games down in Puerto Rico. I think the last year they were in existence, they played 23 home games down in Puerto Rico.
I didn't know that.
In that island country, Charlton.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a great move for potentially taking the Rays back there. You have a much more hospitable stadium in Montreal, and you're not getting much fanfare down in Tampa anyway, Charlton. I think it would do Major League Baseball a great deed by moving that team back up into Canada.
Well, it would be something else if they took the dome off of that stadium. I think it's Tropicana Field. It has to be the biggest eyesore in Major League Baseball in a city that's known for sunshine and beaches down in Tampa. But everybody has their own opinion about where they want to go to see a game. I also want to go across the pond. The USA women's soccer team, they defeated Sweden 2-0 today, and they advanced to the knockout round. Now, this is, again, the USA team that they really towed the flag for America. I hope they can get to the finals. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, making it to the final 16, Charlton, in the World Cup is an outstanding feat when you think about all the countries that are participating.
Yep.
But the women's soccer team, Charlton, in the U.S. is one of the most dominant in the world.
Yeah.
And I see them making it to the final round, Charlton. There's some tremendous young ladies on this team, great athleticism, and tremendous team spirit.
That is very true. So we hope that they have great success. I think it was France that got the benefit of the extra penalty kick, and I thought that was egregious, but I know there won't be anything done about that because when you're the host country, who's going to say that you got to give up a game? We know it happens. The Netherlands, they defeated Canada 2-1. Both teams advanced the knockout round in the Women's World Cup. Canada's every place. They win an NBA championships. They have a Major League teams wanting to come back up there in Montreal and play a game, and they're also doing well in the World Cup. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, wouldn't it be ironic if Canada and the U.S. could face off Charlton in the World Cup for a championship?
Yeah.
It would be just like the NBA title all over again.
Well, hopefully no one will get injured. You're not calling for injuries, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, no, we're not calling for injuries. The ladies don't get that physical, but just tremendous athletes on the U.S. side, Charlton. And it's great because this way you can pronounce everybody's name.
That would be very well, Bixby. I like that idea. Cameroon, they defeated New Zealand 2-1 in the Women's World Cup. Cameroon advances to the knockout round. Really love what's happening with the countries that are just maybe not the most popular countries. I think Cameroon would be what POTUS calls one of those SO countries. Bixby, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it shows that even the little guys on the world stage can be competitive, and that's what you get with Cameroon. The ladies of Charlton are out there playing their hearts out.
Yeah.
And since this is such a worldwide game, soccer, that every little girl, every little boy from around the world understands this game, Charlton, when they're growing up.
Yeah, they understand it growing up. And I want to just bring up something because I thought it was interesting. There's a talk about reparations, and I'm all for it. They get my vote, Big C, especially when you read about the way the United States developed along the color line, if you understand. So Mitch McConnell, he was having talks about reparations. He said he would do everything. He said he would do everything to make sure that reparations does not happen. The same way he would do everything in his power to make sure that President Obama was a one-term president. But Mitch McConnell, he saw the NBA draft and he thought that reparations had passed Congress. Big C. He said, "Wait a minute, how did this happen?" He and POTUS wanted to protest the NBA draft. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, as we talk about reparations in this country, Charlton, the reason why reparations will never be enacted, and you think about Andrew Johnson, who took reparation away from slaves after Lincoln's death and said, no, we don't want to create equality with the blacks in this country, and that's basically what he said. And so he took away opportunity to have equality and growth, and he set this country back still another 200 years when he became president. If you think about the equality that would exist now in America, Charlton, if reparations had ever allowed to go through, and Mitch McConnell to make the asinine statement and say, well, there's nobody alive now that had anything to do with the oppression of black people in America. Yes, you did, Mitch McConnell. If you look at the civil rights movement in the 60s, everybody that's in Congress that's in his age bracket had something to do with oppressing black people, and black people are still being oppressed. When you think about voting registration and black votes being moved off the voting rolls, that's oppression. Well, when you look at it redlining, Charlton, that's oppression. When you look at drawing districts up for voting to have them Republican laden, Charlton, that's suppression, gerrymandering. So, there is black oppression going on every day in America. And for a white politician to say it doesn't exist, I mean, the president lies, but you got the leader of the Senate lying also.
Yeah, it's so obvious they have this color bias. And it's amazing. I have much more respect for my parents and grandparents, and of course always have. But they have to put up with that type of garbage without civil rights that even McConnell fought against also. What a joke of a person. Hope there's a place for him in the afterlife. NFL, we know they open up that Pandora's box, Big C, because they're giving you the chance down that every play in the final 2 minutes is reviewable. Talk about having 4-hour games, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about that, Charlton, and I don't know if the NFL understood what they did when they said that. Because, I mean, that's going to be reviewed, and those games are going to be linked. When you're talking about your friends out there with the hedge bets and all that stuff.
Prop bets.
And prop bets in Vegas. This is going to go over the top. But, when the NFL said that all plays can be reviewed, I mean, we're talking about holding. We're talking about everything. Pass interference, illegal block.
Offside.
I mean, so there's nothing off the table. So I don't know if the NFL really understood what they did when they took that out of the hands of coaches being able to throw a challenge flag and just say, we'll review everything.
Everything is too much. But it's all fair and love and war, and you can always follow it. If the NFL is ever changing, it's always something coming up new that people want to add to it. And speaking of adding, you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify. You can follow us, Big C Sports, on YouTube. You can even follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television. But what I really like is the app called Alexa. When you walk into your house, say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. And our sponsors will come up, and then you'll hear welcome to the show. So we thank our sponsors for their support. I know tonight's a big night for a lot of families. A lot of kids, they fought through whatever they had to fight through. Sometimes not having food in the belly, sometimes not having a place to sleep, not having transportation to go from A to B. And I remember sometimes, even when I was in college, we had 7 roommates in a 2-bedroom apartment. And oftentimes when you brought some food home, it was gone before you got out of the shower, Big C. I remember those days, and no one ever fessed up, but that's all fair, love, and war. Big C, your final thoughts on the NBA draft, the 73rd NBA draft in Brooklyn, and I just want to say congratulations to everybody. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, teams are always hoping to change their fortunes, Charlton, when it comes to the draft. But fans need to sit back and think about it. It's not an instant fix. We get all this hypeness about college athletes becoming pros.
Yeah.
But we forget about the pros that are already there who are battle-tested and have gone through the rigors of an NBA season. It's been a long time since a rookie came in and changed the face of a league. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, LeBron James, players of that stature, Charlton.
Yeah.
But you hope for all the best for these young men coming out, that they have long, lengthy, healthy careers, Charlton, and that they're able to find that productivity. But Derrick Rose was the last number 1 overall pick in the NBA to be an MVP, and that was from the 2010 class, Charlton. We're 10 years later and have not seen that success from any player taken in the first round since then.
Well, we know sometimes you get the prize when you cross the finish line, number 1. Zion Williamson out of Duke, congratulations. The first round overall pick in the draft for 2019. We wish him nothing but the best. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, when you think about this draft tonight and everybody's put all the emphasis on the New Orleans Pelicans with all the number 1 picks that they've acquired in the first round.
Yeah.
They have 3. But not only that, Charlton, the Boston Celtics have 3 picks in the first round. They're looking at filling the position at guard with Irving leaving, at center with Horford leaving, and even at forward with Morris potentially leaving, Charlton. So this is a team that had a young team 2 years ago that made it to the Eastern Final. If they lose those veterans, they can retool with some more young players to help out the young nucleus that they have.
Well, we know they'll have a lot of success up in Boston, and you can have success too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the number 1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number 1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.